books can like put us in a place that we're not in and like give us the chance to experience something that we haven't experienced yet. And so like, yes, this book helped me escape, but also prepared me for the thing I needed to do to move forward with my life.
Okay, let's get this tea party started.
I'm ready for some tea.
Perfect. Today we have some apple cinnamon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, apple cinnamon. Do you want a full glass or a half glass?
I'll take a full.
Okay, perfect.
If you took the time to make it, I'll drink it.
Oh, today we're going to talk a little bit about escapism. So somewhere along the way, I've been reading a lot of nonfiction lately, has become kind of a moral statement. So I don't know, for you, are you more of a fantasy reader? Are you a nonfiction reader?
So I read both.
Okay.
And I don't go to sleep super well.
Okay,
So I usually
same.
have a book I read as I'm like getting ready for bed. And I always read something almost always nonfiction, because you can just stop whenever.
100%.
Because if you're reading fiction, you get into the story, then you want to keep going. And
It's like 2 a.m.
and I can stay up all night. So I usually try and read something nonfiction and fiction at the same time.
Okay, I love that. I love that. What about you, Esther?
Yeah, I guess it just depends on the mood. If I have a lot on my plate, I prefer reading fiction because I have a lot of responsibility in my day-to-day life. And so reading about hard facts and other people's responsibilities can feel heavy too. So I want to read about something where magic fixes things.
I concur. I am a huge fantasy reader myself. Even if it is super late at night, I'm like, you know what? I can just stop at one chapter. I swear, and I don't.
It's like potato chips.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You have to eat the whole bag. I have to read the whole book. But I sometimes get some flack, for loving fantasy. I feel like people see it as escapism, right? You're not dealing with the real world. You're just trying to escape. And sometimes I think, isn't that kind of the point? What's so wrong about that? So I am so excited that you're here with us today, because we would love to pick your brain about what you think about escapism and what's healthy and what's not healthy.
Yeah. Well, little intro for Ben. So Ben and I have known each other for a few years, and I was so excited when Alondra and I were talking about who should we invite, who has got some good perspectives, and Ben was at the top of my list.
Oh, I'm so honored.
I'm going to read your thing here so I don't miss any important accolades that we need to highlight. Dr. Ben Schilaty is a social work professor at Utah Valley University. He also works part-time as a therapist, specializing in working with LGBTQ Latter-day Saints and their families. And he also just gives the best hugs.
Oh, do I really?
Whenever I see you, whenever you come to the gallery, I'm like, I'm going to get a Ben hug today. And it makes my day.
I'm a hugger.
You are a hugger.
And if I don't know the
That's
person,
amazing.
I usually ask for consent. Like,
Yeah.
can I give you a hug? Because
I
not
know.
everyone likes it.
I grew up in a very huggy culture, and it's been weird living here in Utah because I'm like, wait, not everybody's a hugger here. And so there's this awkward pause when I meet a new person of like, wait, are you a hugger?
I accidentally force people into hugs all the time because I don't want to do that awkward so yeah.
Like dance
I'm just
around each
like
other.
grab them and then I'm
Yeah.
like, is that okay?
And in white American culture, we don't have like a standardized greeting. Like if I were
100%.
like I've lived in Mexico, and if I were in Mexico, I know exactly how to greet
Yeah.
everybody. But here it's like, oh, do you shake their hand? Do you just wave?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we're really excited to talk to you today. We also wanted to highlight we have some sponsored snacks from Grapefruit in Time. They provide us with cookies and hand pies. Their specialty are pies. If you're a pie lover, 10 out of 10. I think they won Best of Pie in Utah this last year.
They're so good.
So good.
So good.
I can't wait.
I buy pie from there probably more than I should. So yeah, so we'll be digging in throughout the course of the podcast episode.
Great.
Perfect. Okay.
Can I ask you about escapism?
No, yeah, you totally can.
Okay. As you were giving your intro about escapism, I have never been criticized for liking fiction.
Really?
Yet never.
I want to be friends with your friends.
And so I
love you, my friend.
So I was like curious, like
Y'all don't do this to me.
I just want to know where that comes from, because that's something that I haven't experienced.
Yeah, I think so. At least in my experience, it's typically when I'm meeting people for the first time, right? Like, oh, we're all together, we're all hanging out. And then it's like, oh, like what kind of books do you read? And it's like, oh, I love to read, this fantasy book, some Brandon Sanderson, some, I forgot her name, Kingfisher, I think I'm reading right now. Anyways, and they'll be like, oh, that's interesting. And then they'll kind of switch immediately into like self-help books and things like that.
Oh.
But for me personally, I think that I love books that let me try to figure out what the moral is, what's the right thing to do instead of a book telling me what the right thing is to do. I definitely think there's a time and a place for that, but I don't see anything wrong with wanting to, use my own mind and experience, relate to this character who's not real to deal with real world issues. But a lot of people do see it as escapism. But I love that you've never experienced that. So I'm so curious about, what do you think, like, how would you define escapism?
Yeah, I think escapism is trying to get away from the world we're in, like trying to not deal or be with the current problem, like not be in the present moment. And I think escapism has this negative connotation, but taking a break from our real life and being entertained is a very normal human thing. And, and that's why for, as long as we've had societies, humans have created literature, they've created like theater, they've created works of art so that we can, take a break from the mundane and enter into, a world that is not our own.
I love that.
It leads to something I've been thinking about. It's like, is there a difference between escapism and rest? Because I feel like that's something I feel a lot in my work. And I get this critique sometimes too with my paintings, where people are like, oh, why are you painting fun things when the world's on fire? And sometimes I'm like, okay, there's actually more layers to this fun thing that is commentary on the world being on fire. But sometimes I'm like, hey, I woke up this morning and the world is on fire, and I just want to paint a pretty lady in a pretty dress because that's what my brain needs today.
100%. It makes me think of like the Titanic. When the Titanic was sinking, what were the musicians doing? They were playing
music.
While
Yeah.
the Titanic was sinking, that cute old couple, in the bed, they were just hugging each other. And, it's like you have to find comfort, right? And you have to find the strength, I think, to keep going. And I really feel like that's what art and creativity is for. But a lot of, art and creativity, I feel like, has been maybe female dominated, at least in the fantasy spaces of the
Romantasy.
Yeah, romantasy, things like that. Some people will see women engaging in fantasy and be like, oh, she's, she just can't deal with the real world.
She's checking out.
Yeah, she's checking out, as opposed to, but I also do think that men get that as well, right? Like,
for sure. Yeah.
If my husband's like, oh, I love Lord of the Rings, someone else loves Lord of the Rings. Yeah, they're like, oh, I love that. But if not, they're like, why are you? Well, why don't you watch, Hacksaw Ridge or something like that? I don't know.
Have you seen Hacksaw Ridge?
No.
Well, people need to chill and be less judgmental. It sounds like that you guys have your hobbies.
I know, literally. So I guess, for you, like, at what point do you think escapism has gone too far?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So as a mental health professional, when we're looking at mental disorders, everyone gets sad. But when does it become depression?
Yeah.
Everyone gets nervous. When does it become anxiety? We don't always feed ourselves well. When does that become an eating disorder? And so one of the metrics I use to decide, like, is this a disorder or not, is this interfering with their daily life? And so if someone is so sad that they can't get out of bed or that they can't do their job, that could be depression. If someone is so anxious that they're not going to see friends or they're not going to things that they would want to do, that could then be anxiety, even though it's normal to be nervous before you go to a party. It's normal to be tired and not want to go to work. But when does it cross that line? It's when it starts to interfere with your daily life. And so when it comes to escapism, like, yeah, entertain yourself, step out of the real world, paint that pretty woman in a dress. But is it getting to a place where I'm so involved in this that I'm not engaging in my real life? That's when it would become a problem.
Okay, that makes sense. I might have to reevaluate a couple of things for myself as you were talking. I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so, well, I'm curious about that. But
Yeah.
for example, like, let's say you're like really engrossed in a book and you've been invited to go to dinner with friends and you're like, oh, I want to finish this book. So you text your friends and you cancel.
Yeah.
That might not be a problem.
Okay.
But that could be a symptom or the start of a problem. If that then happens all the time,
That makes
and you're
sense.
not interacting with your friends because you're always engrossed in a book, that would be when I would start to be concerned.
Okay.
If it happens once or twice, the book is really good. Yeah. But what are the things you're thinking you might need to reevaluate?
Oh, I was just thinking, when you were talking about, sometimes it interferes with real life, right? With like wanting to do work and stuff. I know for me personally, especially just with like the state of the world recently, right? We're in the United States. It's no secret that there's a lot of, political dysfunction, turmoil, a lot of different opinions being thrown around. And so I've noticed more and more recently that I I used to love engaging, for example, with like even fantasy that was like higher fantasy that was like, it really makes you think. You really have to get into the nitty gritty to understand what's going on. And now I'm just like, I'm a cozy fantasy girl. And there have been a couple days, where it's like, I really should do this painting, or I need to do this thing for marketing. And I'm like, I'm gonna read this cozy fantasy. I'm gonna sit right here on this couch and read this cozy fantasy. But I guess to your point though, if it's a couple times, because I will say that afterwards, I do feel so much more invigorated, so much better. And the work that I'm doing afterwards is a lot better quality than it would have been otherwise. So in your professional opinion, is that unhealthy?
I think that is great. You know,
you heard it here, folks.
and this is one thing I tell my clients all the time, is that emotions aren't good or bad. They're just information. And so see how you're feeling. And if you're feeling like constantly nervous, what does that nervousness have to say to you? What is it telling you? And if you read a book and you feel good and invigorated, what is that telling you? And so if you're having an experience with a novel and it's making you feel good and like leading to a more productive life, that's fantastic. Let that emotion teach you.
I love that. I love that. I love what you just said, that emotions are information and they're not good or bad. I really love that because I see that a lot, especially with, my friends who are starting to have kids. Their kids are starting to gain some sentience. You can talk to them and they'll talk back. But I have noticed,
That's the problem when they start talking back.
I know, once they start talking back, you're like, oh, got to watch myself around you. But I really love how the way that they have been intentionally parenting their child, they don't shame those bad emotions. If they're angry or they're sad or they're even scared, they start to talk about, oh, like, what, tell me more about that. And I think that's something I should do to better parent myself, is when I'm having those big emotions, be like, okay, what is this trying to tell me about me and about what I need right now to be a better and productive member of society. So thank you so much. Preaching bars. Yeah. Tell my husband when I go home.
Can I give you one example from my current life?
Absolutely.
So a couple Sundays ago, there's this family I have dinner with every Sunday. We have a great time. We watched the Hannah Montana reunion special or whatever.
Oh, love.
And if I watched Hannah Montana, of course. But the special just wasn't doing it for me. And so I was just so tired when I left and just feeling kind of down. And so as I was driving home, I was like, I'm feeling a little down. I'm feeling a little depressed today. I was like, and so I asked myself, well, what do I need? I was like, well, I need connection. I just been with some friends I really love, but then I called some other friends and we had a good chat, and that really invigorated me. And so it's all about knowing, letting your body teach you. And it's our body makes us hungry because we need to eat, we need nourishment. And the same way, our emotions are the same way. They teach us what we need, and that's often social connection. It can be an escape from what we're going through right now. And so I really do think escapism can be a really good thing if it's giving our body what it needs. And what it might need is, right now, this problem that's happening in my life isn't something that is good for me to focus on.
Yeah.
I love that.
I feel like for me, it also provides me some parallelism that I can then be a little bit more objective about my life. Where, if I'm reading a story about a woman who's facing a lot of odds and I'm feeling very overwhelmed in my life, okay, how did she think through these things? How can that parallel in the way that I'm talking to myself and the way that I'm viewing my goals and the obstacles that I need to overcome? And I think, even bringing this a little bit into the religious sphere, that's the beauty of the literary elements of Scripture, is that we're placing ourselves in these stories, and that oftentimes it's not even necessarily how historically accurate are these stories. It's what's the narrative that we're getting pulled into, and how does that provide us space to process the things that are happening in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that. And, in my tradition as a Latter-day Saint, we are regularly invited to walk through the story of Adam and Eve and consider ourselves as them and, what they went through and the same choices they made. And that isn't escapism. It's religious literaryism. I don't know what you call that.
Religious play acting. What is that? A method acting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's where you get in. Yeah. I think you say religion is method acting.
Yeah. But like you said, that's a good thing for us to see, how did this person do this thing, whether it be, a real person or a literary story in Scripture, that can be incredibly healthy for us.
100%. I love that. I definitely think that, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. If this has also been your experience, let me know. And if you have noticed this as well, let me know. But I definitely have noticed that sometimes women will receive, I guess, the larger shame for taking part of things that are deemed less serious, you know, whether that's, again, participating in, you know, play and theater and art and, you know, making pretty paintings and stuff, you know. Like I had a family member who, you know, I'm an artist, you're an artist. I had a family member recently who was asking my husband about his job, right? He's like, oh, how's your job? How's your job? And then asked me, you know, how are your activities? And I was like, buddy, I made more than my husband last month and the month before that, you know, and it doesn't matter how much I'm making though anyway, because even if I hadn't been out making him at that time, it's like, you know, this isn't just a fun little hobby because I'm a woman with some paints. You know, this is my job. This is my career. This is something that I'm trying to, you know, build for myself. And so to your point, Esther, I think that a lot of times when I'm engaging with fantasy, whether I'm painting it or I'm reading it or, you know, I'm having conversations with people about, you know, fantasy that we love, it's because I'm trying to understand something about myself or about the world that maybe is too difficult to approach head on or is too fired up, you know, for other people to approach head on.
Definitely.
So you have to approach it delicately, right?
Yeah. And I don't know if I would necessarily describe it so much as shame as I would trivializing, maybe.
That's a great
like
word.
It's cutesy.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
that's why I feel like a
cutesy.
lot of the activities get described as like, oh, that's cute.
Yes.
And like you're saying with your career, you know, I've definitely experienced that the same myself. You know, I've been working professionally as an artist for a decade now, and the number of times that, you know, my husband or my parents, you know, be explaining to somebody else what I do, and they're like, oh, she does this as a job. And my mom's gotten into the default where she'll pull up my website. She will show like random strangers at church, you know, that she meets places like, this is my daughter's website. She does art.
Yes. And it's really good.
Yeah.
Okay.
These are the people she's worked for.
She's paying her bills.
Yeah.
With this art. Yeah. No, I totally.
So there's like some justification that happens of like, no, I'm doing this for a real reason.
Yeah.
And, you know, not that you necessarily have to, like we're saying, like sometimes it doesn't have to be like a quote unquote real reason that you're engaging with things, you know, that are more imaginative.
Absolutely.
But checking our biases of how our perceptions of gender play into imagination.
Absolutely. That's actually something that I've been trying to be more thoughtful of, you know, when I am talking to someone who's telling me about their hobbies. I have noticed that like sometimes, and see, this is me, it's ingrained in me too, and I'm trying to get rid of it. Like if I have a girl who I'm talking to and she's like, oh, like I love, you know, dirt bikes or, you know, MMA fighting or something like that. I'm like, sure you do. Because in my head, you know, I'm like, no.
You're doing it for a boy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, oh, you're doing it for a boy, right? And, you know, obviously within the last couple of years, that's like completely changed, you know. I've completely shifted how I feel about that. And so now when someone tells me that, it's like you have to strip away almost their gender. You know, you just have to look at them as a full person because we are all full people. And we are only now, I think, as a society, really beginning to dive into, you know, us being full people and being allowed to like things no matter how trivial, you know, other people might perceive them. So yeah, that's just something that I've been noticing recently.
May I share a little story about that?
Yes.
So at Utah Valley University, I teach in the social work program, and one of the classes I teach is group therapy. And so our class functions as a therapy group. And then students take turns leading the group and they pick the topic. And one day we were talking about childhood trauma. And so we were all thinking about that. And thinking about my life, I've had a very happy life. Like I don't really have childhood trauma. And so as I was thinking about it, I realized that the only thing I could think of was I got teased for liking pink and I got teased for liking My Little Ponies. And so
My Little Pony's great though.
I know.
You had good taste.
Yeah,
Good
turns out, surprise, surprise, I'm gay. But you know, as a child, I loved My Little Ponies, and I had this My Little Ponies lunchbox that I loved that I didn't take to school because I got teased for it. So I took a Garfield lunchbox to school. And as I was thinking about this, I realized my parents still bought me the My Little Ponies lunchbox. And they bought me My Little Ponies, and I was embarrassed to take them to school, but I still had them at home. And unfortunately, in our society, we have boy things and girl things.
Yeah.
And girl things are often viewed as less good or less valuable. But really, things are just things. And you know, some girls like things are typically considered boy things, and vice versa. And unfortunately, we need to do a better job of just classifying hobbies as being as being valid and relevant and important.
No, I love that. And I love that your parents got you those dolls. Like, that's so awesome.
Iconic.
Yeah, so iconic. No, I really love what you say because, I definitely think that, like society puts weight, right? That the social weight on different objects. And I remember, I minored in anthropology. We went to Japan, right? And we did a field school there. And I was actually looking at the social weight that toys play, in a Japanese household. And so, I was only there for a short amount of time, but based on my findings, here's what I found. I came to see that a lot of times the Japanese people that I was working with, they were encouraging their kids to participate in escapism. Like they were getting them toys that they had grown up with, right? Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon cards, things like that. And it wasn't seen as frivolous. It was seen as like, this is for play. So go and play and have a great time, because the work culture in Japan is very intense, and so they also, I would say the pleasure culture, not like, pleasure, but, the for fun culture is also pretty prevalent in Japan. And I saw that the only Japanese woman who I saw, or the only Japanese woman that I worked with who was giving her kids like STEM toys, was one who was trying to raise them American, is what she said. And so she was like giving them like, STEM toys and Lincoln Logs, whatever, things like that. And everybody else was just like, here's your Hello Kitty doll, go play, have a great time. And so it really just shows that like from society to society, right? How much social weight, how much social pressure or stigma are we putting on escapism? And what is it being used for, right, in our society? So, I wanted to ask you, Ben, do you think that there's a difference between escapism that restores you and escapism that numbs you?
Yeah, for sure. The numbing is when we are just trying to shut off the realities of our life and not deal with them. I've actually got a little quote from my book, if I can share that with you.
Of course.
And so I wrote a book called A Walk in My Shoes, Questions I'm Often Asked as a Gay Larry Saint. It's very good. And in it, I tell the story of my birth, and I won't give you the whole story because it's not important for this part, but I was a very difficult pregnancy. My mom almost died. I almost died when she was pregnant with me. And my mom had to make some decisions, like, are we going to move forward with this pregnancy? Like, is it safe for me? And so, people after reading my book will tell me, like, I loved like X, Y, or Z part of your book. And people often read me this quote, and I didn't write it. My friend Beth, who was a mom who helped me edit my book, she wrote it. She's like, I think you should put this line in. And I think it's so funny that one of people's favorite lines is a line that I didn't write.
Love that.
So this is what my friend Beth wrote about the experience with my mom. So it says, denial is a powerful coping mechanism, and it allowed my mom to postpone the decision until guidance came from heaven. And, we often think of denial as this like really bad thing, but it was too overwhelming. Like what my mom was going through was too overwhelming. And so she just pretended like I wasn't there, like this didn't exist, until she was ready to deal with it. So sometimes we cope in ways that allow us to just move forward with our life. And sometimes we just can't handle the reality of what we're doing. Our bodies will do this thing that's called dissociating, where like something so traumatic is happening that we just like leave our bodies. And people talk about like floating above their body, or like observing, like I felt like something was happening to me and I wasn't there. Often when really traumatic things are happening, that's just like your body protecting you from the reality of this like horrific thing. And so escapism can be healthy when we just need a break. We just aren't ready to deal with the reality of our life. It then becomes unhealthy if we then never engage with our lives. So, for example, I haven't read, what's that show? Highlander? Is that
Outlander?
Outlander, yeah, Outlander. Yeah. I haven't read it, or there's a show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't read it or watched the show. But my understanding is women love it because this woman has like this adventure where she like meets the perfect man. Mm-hmm. And I think for some women, that's a way to like escape their reality, mm-hmm. like here I can live in this fantasy. Life is mundane. It's not always exciting. Here I have this exciting, like perfect life, like mm-hmm. through this woman. Mm-hmm. That's okay. Like that's not bad. It then becomes bad if you then don't engage with your life, if you then don't engage with your husband, if you don't handle the problems that are in front of you. But sometimes we're not ready for that, to deal with the problems, and that's okay.
Yeah. Makes me think about in my painting practice, sometimes I will literally shut a painting in a cupboard or put it in a drawer because I've gotten to a point where I don't even know if it looks like a painting anymore.
Yeah.
I've been working on it so long. It feels like the colors are blurring together. It just feels like I'm moving paint around on the canvas. And I feel like life gets that way too. I'm like, I'm trying. It's just like I'm moving things around and nothing is changing. And for me, I found sometimes it's just overnight. Like I'll just like shut it where I can't even see it when I'm like walking to the bathroom or something. And having that complete visual break from it, I'll open it back up and be like, sometimes it's like, oh, wow, I actually can paint and I'm just having a mental breakdown. It was completely in my head. And sometimes I'll be like, oh, yeah, I really need to fix some things. But having
now
that,
you can see the problem.
yeah,
so
but
you
I can
fix.
see it. It doesn't
Yeah.
just feel like a muddy mess anymore.
Totally. I love that.
I think that's a fantastic example because sometimes, we all get into ruts. Like life isn't always happy. Life isn't always perfect. And even though our circumstances might not change, we might just feel differently about the circumstances. And that's okay. I recently have been in a bit of a rut. I'm not like depressed or like things are bad. It's just like sometimes work just feels mundane. And then I read Project Hail Mary, and that was like so fun. And like every day I looked forward to reading it because it was so engaging and delightful. But I kept doing the mundane things in my life, and that was okay.
Did you see the movie yet?
Of course.
Yes. Was it real? I haven't seen it yet. So does it live up to the hype?
Personally, I think it was one of the best book to movie I've ever seen.
Okay.
Yeah, they did a very good job of taking a long book and putting it into like a 2-hour movie.
That's
my
difficult.
Yeah, they did a really good job.
Okay, I'm like, as long as they capture the soul of it, right?
And Ryan Gosling was handsome in it, and it was great. like I felt things, not just because he's handsome, but like the emotional moments.
An amazing performance.
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was art.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Truly. But can I just share a story about
Yeah, of course.
from about escapism?
Yes.
So when I was 23 years old, I was attending Brigham Young University as an undergraduate student. I was gay and I knew it, and I didn't know a single other gay person at the university. And so I was like, I'm going to die with the secret. Like I can never tell anyone. And it was so awful. And I'd been so busy with schoolwork and with my job that I just didn't have time to think about it. And then summer rolled around and I wasn't in school and I was working like 30 hours a week. So I suddenly had time to think about it, and I was like, oh no, I don't want to think about this. And one of my professors had recommended a book of short stories. And so I one day I was just like my brain was starting to spin. I was like, I don't want this spinning anymore. So I got on my bike and rode to a park like a couple miles away and pulled out this book of short stories just to read. And then suddenly one of the characters was gay, just like out of nowhere. And I just like, it crushed me because I just didn't want to think about it. And I just like stopped reading it. I didn't even finish the book because I just did not want to deal with anything that was like that reality. So the next book I picked up that same summer, the 7th Harry Potter book came out. And I love Harry Potter. That's probably like my favorite fantasy. And that counts as fantasy, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay, great. I mean, they're dragons.
Wands. Hello.
Yeah. And I remember reading that book, and it was like, that got me outside of like my head. I wasn't thinking about what was happening in my life as much. But I don't want to spoil the end of the book in case someone hasn't read it.
If you haven't read it by now, you deserve to have it spoiled.
So skip forward 30 seconds. I'm about to spoil part of Harry Potter 7. But in the Battle of Hogwarts, they evacuate all the students out when Harry and his friends show up, and then even like think about it right now, it makes me emotional. But then all the Hufflepuffs and all the Gryffindors come back to fight, and I remember reading that and thinking, would my friends do that for me? Like, would they be with me like in my battle as I viewed it at the time? And I was like, I think they would. And then I came out to two of my best friends the next week.
Wow.
And so, like you said earlier, Esther, books can like put us in a place that we're not in, and like give us the chance to experience something that we haven't experienced yet. And so, like, yes, this book helped me escape, but also prepared me for the thing I needed to do to move forward with my life.
That's beautiful.
That is so amazing. I love from Harry Potter, and it wasn't even, you closed the book that had the gay character, right? That you would think you'd be like, oh yeah, this is what's going to lead me on that path. But the thing that led you on the path was the Battle of Hogwarts, which is so incredible
Friendship.
to me. Yeah, that friendship, that loyalty.
And what's fun about the word escapism is it's like we think we can escape reality. Like you truly cannot get
Don't
away.
crush my delusion.
Like you truly cannot get away from your problems.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have seen Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, but like one of the lines in it is like the clock in San Dimas is always running, like where they're from, like life is still happening the whole time while they're on this adventure. And so even if you're escaping, like your real life is still there. And at some point you have to engage with it.
Yeah. I really love that. I'm actually so curious now. Do you, Esther, by chance have any stories as well, like from books or anything that like encouraged you, gave you strength or something to move forward with your life, or even that revealed something about you?
I don't know if I can top that one though.
I know.
Well, like, let's shut the
do you
mics
have a really
off, be done
boring
for the
one?
day.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I actually will go a little bit of a religious route here.
Okay.
And a little narcissistic too. So
I love
I was
that.
named after Queen Esther. And I love, my mom really emphasized that to me growing up, that you're named after this woman who's bold and willing to say and do things in situations that were hard. And it's been funny as I've gotten older and kind of studied the stories of women in scripture more extensively and looked at, the ways that women are framed in religious spaces. Oftentimes it's in context of who you married to and who did you give birth to.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think the story of Esther is so unique because it doesn't relate to either of those two things. She was hot and she was good at politics.
She had a strong stomach.
Yeah.
Strong will.
and that's kind of an oversimplification of the story. But being able to go back into that and say, okay, when I'm put in a place where I have to choose between being comfortable and living a life where I might have some luxuries and even that is still an oversimplification of the story. Like, there's a lot of complexity to the spot she was put in, and she didn't have a lot of agency in that either. But am I willing to stand up and say, who am I at the end of this? And am I willing to stand up for those who are oppressed? And am I willing to put my neck on the line for those who are oppressed? And I had to ask that question to myself a lot in the work that I do of, do I want to do safe, comfortable art, or do I want to do art that says things that I care about? Do I want to, do work that makes me the most money, or do I want to do work that moves things that I see needing to be moved in my communities? And it always comes back to me of like, okay, I can do this. I can stand up to those things that feel big and scary.
It's amazing. Yeah. As the youngster here, not that much younger, but as a youngster, I really look up to and admire, people like you two, who come before me and who kind of pave the way to show that these things are possible, because for me in my life, I definitely feel like books and, I'm a video gamer, kind of. No, I am. I'm going to own it. I am.
Own it.
I don't Fortnite, but I definitely will play an 80-hour game from start to finish. You know what I'm saying? I love.
Love it.
Yeah, especially if the story is so good. But I definitely have, had a lot of times in my life where I have felt like, I'm just a woman, because that's kind of the rhetoric that I grew up with, right? A lot. Like, I'm just a woman. My path before me is clear, right? And by the way, if this is your path, it's not a bad path. I'm just saying, it's to get married, have kids, and die, right? So
sometimes in a different order.
and take care of your grandkids too.
Yeah.
Work for the PTA for a bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Bake cinnamon rolls for the society.
Yes. And all of those things are such good, worthy things. But when it feels like that is your only path and you cannot exist outside of that path, it doesn't make you feel like a person at all. It makes you feel like an incubator, or even like you're a speck of sand in the ocean. I'm not poetic. And you're getting pushed onto the shore. And there's nothing you can do, right, to stop the tide and stuff. And so, growing up, I feel like, these video games, these books, these movies, with strong female characters, even strong male characters, helped me to kind of see the strength within myself and to see like, what, I am a full person. And yeah, so what if I want to be an artist? So what if I want to, create change? It doesn't matter that I'm a woman, I can do those things. And that is very meaningful work, and it is not frivolous because of my chromosomes, So anyway, but that was something I had to learn. A lot of people, those of you who already know that, I'm jealous of you. I wish I had known that, but I did. I grew up in a home with a Latino, patriarch. And if you come from that background, that it can be very machismo, right? And also coming from a high demand religion as well, that is also very gender role oriented. And so anyway, it's just been very liberating to be around folks such as yourself and to escape, because in the escape, I feel like I find myself. What's that scripture? It's like you lose yourself. Is that a scripture? You lose yourself to find yourself?
That's not a scripture, but it's the truth.
Okay.
It's true.
It should be
The gospel
in the
according
scripture.
to Alondra.
Yeah, but there's a lot of scriptures like he who loses his life shall find it.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's the one.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the one I was thinking of. Thank you. Yes, but it's really true, and so
Can I just build off that, Alondra? Because
Yes.
that's beautiful. And, part of being in this world is figuring out what your path looks like
yeah,
and not letting someone else define it. And literature for me has been so good to help me figure out what I want my path to look like. And, we're talking about escapism, but also trying to envision how the world can be. So there's a graphic novel called Heartstopper. About two queer teens in England, and it's a graphic novel with pictures, not that it's explicit. Yeah. And I'm going to spoil part of it again if you haven't read the first one. But one of the kids comes out to his mom towards the end, and the first thing the mom says is, "Oh, honey, I am so sorry for all the times you thought you couldn't tell me that." And when I read that, I was like my parents did a great job, but I was like, oh, I wish every kid could just be told something like that when they come out. And so seeing the world work in a good way helps us know how we can make the actual world work in that idealized way that it often isn't. Something that might seem really frivolous is like Dr. Seuss books. But as a kid, I really liked Dr. Seuss. And my favorite quote of all time comes from the Lorax, and it is, "Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to get better. It's not." And this children's book, about colorful trees, I have a couple of people, because they know I love the quote, they've painted it or printed out and given it to me. I have a couple of them in my house, and it inspires me a lot. I'm like, I care a lot, and I want the world to be better, and that comes from a children's book. Yeah. And so these things aren't frivolous; they're important.
100%. The Lorax is actually goated. That's a great
100%.
Yeah.
That's a great book.
Yeah.
Would recommend.
And I grew up in Western Washington. It was banned in some towns in Washington because of its perceived anti-logging message.
Amazing. We should do a whole
hilarious.
episode on book bans for really weird reasons.
Yeah. They're we don't want our kids to think we're bad for being loggers.
That is so
man.
funny.
I want to loop back to your question because I just kind of had a full circle thought come through on the topic of stories that inspire us and the way that we tell narratives. It's funny going back and looking at my favorite movies as a kid. And, I grew up in kind of a culture and a community where feminism was the F word.
Yeah.
You
right.
don't describe yourself as a feminist.
Totally.
And then I'm like, oh, I was obsessed with Mulan. Part of it was Asian American representation in media. There's not a lot of that. But also this idea of a girl taking on, a historically male role and then finding acceptance from her family through that and, making a big difference in her community. And I can't even count how many times I watched that movie as a kid. I had a really sweet experience with my mother recently. I was back home visiting last year, and I was out in the front yard just working on some painting. And she'd just come back from visiting one of the neighbors. And she's like, oh, I was visiting the neighbor. She's got a daughter who's about 9 years old. And I was showing her daughter your artwork. And at the time, my book with Brandon Sanderson had just come out. I had a lot of really cool professional accomplishments in that last year. And she's like, I wanted her to know that a little girl who grew up in Kahaluu, which is this little rural town that I grew up in, could grow up and have her art seen all over the world. That she could grow up and have a career as an artist. And it just felt like such a full circle moment because I was not raised in a culture where that was something I necessarily expect from my mother. I love my mother. I have a great relationship with her now. But, for most of my teenage years, for most of my college years, it was, oh, you do art because it's something you can maybe do while you're a mom.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. You do art because it's something, you're passionate about. Also, they were very realistic about what it takes to be a professional artist. My father's a designer professionally, and so there was never any oh, follow your dreams. It's do you want to starve? And also coming from an immigrant family as well, immigrant communities aren't very supportive of pursuing careers in the arts. And so to see my family say, hey, look, she did it, so these other little girls like you can do it too. Because that's why we tell stories.
Yeah, and there are a lot of stories like that can inspire us to be the kind of person we want to be. And the story of Esther, even though I'm not named Esther, has been one that has inspired me as well. When it was time for me to come out publicly and start sharing my story, I was really scared to do it. And I had written this post that was going to be my coming out blog post. I was 30 years old, and I sent it to my last girlfriend that I hadn't seen in 7 years, and we hadn't talked in years. And she read it, and she just responded by sending me that quote from the Book of Esther. It says, well, "Who knows if you've come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" And I was like, ugh, I got to do it. And it gave me the courage to do a really hard thing.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Dang.
And that's not escapism. That's finding courage through the example of literary figures.
100%. Yeah. No, I love that. From this conversation that we've had, I really feel, I feel inspired by you guys. I really appreciate your insight, when you're talking about, things, when you talk about basically the weight of escapism, right? That different societies give, right, to escapist projects, right? Activities, that's a better word for it. And I really, really appreciate I appreciate all of the insights that you guys have shared, all the stories, the personal stories that you've had, showing how it's been helpful in your lives, Something that I definitely think is that I do think that more female-focused escapism is also typically pretty wholesome, It's very, when we think of romantasy and stuff, consensual, happy, loving, female-focused. Hey, we love that,
If only the real world could be that way.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It would be so fun and awesome. It'd be so awesome if, there were no stigmas about what you could and couldn't do, right, based on your gender, right? And so, anyway, having this conversation together, it definitely gives me more courage and more insight to make sure that when I am engaging in escapism, that I'm being mindful about it, but that I'm also not avoiding escapism that I feel like others might trivialize, that because I like it and I enjoy it as a full person, I'm going to do it and I'm going to take part of it. So I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Can I give you just a little framework to think about?
Yes.
So as a social worker, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. When I meet with a new client, I always do what's called a biopsychosocial assessment. So bio meaning your physical body, psycho meaning your mental health, and social meaning your social life. And that's because all those things are connected. And so I want to know, how are you sleeping? How are you eating? When you have a bad day, who do you talk to? Do you have a group of friends? What is your mental health like? And I ask a lot of questions because all those things are interconnected. If you're not getting enough sleep, you're going to be sad. We need to sleep. And same thing if you're not eating. If you're not connecting with people, you're also going to be sad. But if you're feeling depressed, it might be hard to connect with people. It might be hard to feed yourself. And so all these things are interconnected. And so when it comes to, escapism and literature, ask yourself, how are you taking care of your physical body? How are you taking care of your social life? How are you taking care of your mental health? And the reality is that reading is really good for our mental health.
Love that. Add a little bit of nerd context here. So in my master's research, I was looking a lot at the relationship between empathy and aesthetics, and this idea of how do we foster empathy in ourselves and in our communities through the aesthetic objects that we're using. And as part of this, I was looking at the history of the word empathy, and it comes from a German word, which I'm not even going to try to say, but it means to feel in something or in feeling. And that linguistically, aesthetic is kind of an antithesis to the concept of an anesthetic. That anesthetic make us not feel, aesthetics make us feel. And I love what we're getting
I
here.
did not know that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I am going to use that.
You like linguistic nerdy facts.
Yeah.
There you go. But I feel like what we're kind of teasing out here is this idea that it allows us to be in feeling, to feel something, to be in a feeling, to be in a moment, to work through those things. And sometimes that through work has to come, kind of an around, and then we come back through it. But at the end of the day, we are working through them.
Yeah, beautiful. That's awesome. I love that fact.
Yeah.
Snaps. I'm like, cut. Actually, to finish though, we just want to finish it in kind of a light, fun way. But before we do, we just want to say, for everyone who is watching, engage in healthy escapism. Anything that you enjoy, the activities.
Listen to our podcast.
Yes. This is a great way to escape in the shower or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Anything that you enjoy that you want to take apart, anything that you enjoy that gives you life, that makes you able to better deal with life and discover yourself, take part in it. Enjoy it and share it with your loved ones, right? I love so much that everything that we use kind of as escapism, we can then share with other people, books, movies, TV shows, video games. I'm playing Expedition 33 right now. It's an amazing game. You guys should all play it. And I love to share it with people because it's amazing. And I love that you guys were able to share with us your stories, related to how you were using escapism in a positive way. But speaking of escapism, to finish this off, I want to know if you could escape to a world right now, fantasy world, where would you go and why?
I just watched this fabulously terrible TV show recently on Netflix, Sandokan.
Oh, I'm dead. Wait, is it the guy with the... Okay, eyeliner. Look, men should wear eyeliner, okay? That's all I'm saying. Be a great thing.
Yeah. It's fantasy both in the fact that it's supposed to be Southeast Asia, but it's not really Southeast Asia. But it's also one of those where all of these geopolitical problems just kind of get solved by small community action and hot men. And that sounds like an amazing world to live in to me.
I want to live in that world. That sounds awesome.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So when I was a kid, the movie I watched all the time was this live-action 80s version of Alice in Wonderland. I've seen it easily 100 times. And I really believed that world could be real. And so I would put my hand on all the mirrors I saw, see if I could walk through them. And I never did. But just a couple weeks ago, I decided to read Alice in Wonderland and the sequel, Alice Through the Looking Glass, because I never read them. So I read the source material, and it was so fun. And I would just love to go to Wonderland. I think that'd be fun. Although I realized reading it that most of the book is just Alice encountering a bunch of characters and then arguing with them about things. I was like, just get them fights with all these random characters.
It might be cathartic though, right?
Yeah.
So it's like being online.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Trippy, and you're just arguing with people all the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tons of color, yeah.
Yes. So I think it'd be fun to go to Wonderland and Looking Glass Land.
That's so awesome. So if I could escape anywhere, I would want to escape to a Studio Ghibli movie. I would want to go to Howl's Moving Castle. It's full of beautiful fields, beautiful flowers, this super cool mechanical castle, these fun friends that you find along the way. Howl is, not bad looking. I know he's not real and he's a cartoon, guys. I don't care. Yeah, that would be really amazing. Their life is just so cozy and their bacon is huge.
So you both want to go to places that have hot guys in them.
And good food.
And good food, yeah. Good food, yes.
The way
and
to our
lots
hearts
of
is simple.
flowers.
Yeah.
And you can turn into a flying monster and fly around. And I think being able to fly places would be amazing. So anyway, long story short, Howl's Moving Castle, Studio Ghibli. There you go.
So fun.
Perfect.
Yeah. So what books are everybody reading these days?
So I am training for a marathon right now. And since I'm training for a marathon, I have to always tell people that I'm doing that, which means I spend a lot of time running on my feet. So I'm listening to a lot of books. And like I said, I like to do fiction and nonfiction. Mm-hmm. So I am currently listening to a book called Remarkably Bright Creatures. It's a novel about an octopus. And it's really good. And
I'm intrigued.
I'm only halfway into it, but somehow... And it's about an octopus and people who come to this aquarium, and somehow they're all connected. I don't know all the details yet, but it's really fun and really well written. I also just read a book called Stiffs, and it's about the lives of cadavers and what happens with cadavers. And someone recommended it to me. I do not remember who, because it was on my Libby for a long time. Then it finally came up after a couple of months. Uh-huh. And it's written by someone who is really funny. So it's this very morbid topic, but it's really funny. And I learned a lot, and it was very gruesome sometimes.
It's amazing.
Hey, we love some dark humor.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
So
I'm all down.
We all cope somehow.
Yeah.
So now I know what happens if you donate your body to science.
We want to know.
You don't.
Okay.
You don't want to know.
We'll leave it there then.
Well, I know. But if you
I want to enjoy my creme brulee pie.
Yeah. If you want to know, you can read Stiffs. If you want to learn about an octopus, you can read Remarkably Bright Creatures.
I love that.
Check it out.
Love it.
I'm currently finishing up the 5th book in the Stormlight, I guess the first part of the Stormlight cycle. My claim to shame is that I'd never actually read a Brandon Sanderson cover to cover before I got hired by him.
Girl.
I know. The fans have been so forgiving. Thank you, fans. But I've loved that series. I particularly love the way that Brandon writes the interior world of a woman. I've never met a man who can describe what it's like to be inside a woman's head so well.
Yasna Colin, I would marry her. Yeah. She's amazing.
Yeah. But just like the conflict and the competing motivations and, you know, the emotional complexity that you feel in moments. He captures that so well, and I love it.
Yeah. Can I tell you a quick funny story?
Oh, yeah,
This is about Brandon Sanderson, but there's a local author whose name I have forgotten, but she wrote a series of books called The Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon.
Oh,
I heard of those.
Yes. So, and there's 8 books. There's going to be 25, but I heard some friends talking about it. I was like, oh, what are you talking about? They're like, oh, this isn't for you. And I was like, yeah.
Try me.
So I've read the first 2, and I'm waiting for the 3rd and the 4th to be ready on my Libby app.
Okay.
Don't let them tell you what's not for you.
Yeah, so I'm reading a nice Regency story about...
Amazing.
Yeah, and there's I'm only in the 2nd book, but there's 10 possible suitors. I'm like, who's she going to end up with? I want to know. And maybe nobody. Who's to say?
But one book that I've been reading, I haven't gotten that far in it, but I'm really enjoying it so far. It's just Eat, Pray, Love. You know, it's a classic. I haven't read it, but I have started to, and it's just really beautiful. You know, like I said, I studied anthropology in college, and I love other cultures. I love traveling, and I love getting to know people from all different walks of life. And I just living vicariously through her, since I can't go and, you know, travel for a year. So yeah. It's been really awesome, though. Okay. Great. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. And you look amazing, you know.
Thank you.
Yes.
I don't own anything like this, so Esther provided the shirt for me.
He said we could dress him up.
It's the bird pin for me. It looks great. You look great.
It's the what?
The bird pin for me.
Oh, the bird pin. Yeah.
It captures your effortless grace with which you tackle the world.
The way I just soar through the sky. Unencumbered.
Colorfully.
Yeah. So we'll see you guys next time. Break. Thank you so much for joining our tea party. Tune in every 2 weeks on Mondays for more tea. We'll see you then.